Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Daniel South, and I'm representing the affirmative side. And contention one, as Assad continues to go unpunished and own chemical weapons and WMDs, he holds the ability to proliferate those weapons, which threatens our international security. Subpoint A. The threat of chemical weapons proliferation poses a threat to our allies neighboring Syria, according to Chuck Hagel, Secretary of Defense at Senate of Foreign Relations Committee hearing on Syrian intervention on September 3rd, 2013, where he said, "If Assad is prepared to use chemical weapons against his own people, we have to be concerned that terrorist groups like Hezbollah, which has forces in Syria supporting the Assad regime, will acquire them and use them. That risk of chemical weapon proliferation poses a direct threat to our friends, our partners, and U.S. personnel in the region. We cannot afford for Hezbollah or any terrorist group determined to strike the United States to have incentives to acquire or use chemical weapons." Subpoint B. Russia's veto power as a member of the UN Security Council provides a barrier towards military discipline against Syria, according to Sam Dagner, a Middle East correspondent for Wall Street Journal based in Damascus and Beirut, in the Wall Street Journal on September 17, 2013, where he writes, "An explicit threat of force for Syria's noncompliance was initially proposed by U.S. ally France earlier this week but rejected by Russia, which has veto power as a permanent member of the UN Security Council." Subpoint C. Russia's diplomatic resolution set for Assad to destroy chemical weapons by the end of his term, according to Sam Dagner, who was previously qualified on the Wall Street Journal September 17, 2013, where the U.S.-Russian agreement says the regime's chemical weapons must be destroyed by mid-2014, around the same time the president's term ends. Subpoint D. Diplomacy has only given Assad more time with chemical weapons, according to Robert Menendez, the U.S. Senator and Chairman of the Senate of Foreign Relations Committee, at the Senate of Foreign Relations Committee hearing on Syrian intervention on September 3rd, 2013, where he says, "Some may also suggest that we have not done enough to allow diplomacy to work, but the fact is we have tried diplomacy. We have gone through the UN on many occasions and it has only bought Assad more time." Subpoint E. Our international security depends on the choices that we make, according to John Kerry, U.S. Secretary of State, a former senator of Massachusetts, on September 14, 2013. "It matters to our security and the security of our allies. It matters to Israel. It matters to our close friends Jordan, Turkey, and Lebanon, all of whom live just a stiff breeze away from Damascus. It matters to all of them where the Syrian chemical weapons are, and if unchecked, they can cause even greater death and destruction to those friends." Subpoint F. By going unchecked, these chemical weapons will or may be used again in Syria, according to Frieda Grittis, columnist for World Affairs, on September 5th, 2013. "The Syrian government, by all appearances, used nerve gas to kill hundreds of its own citizens. If it passes without a response, this will not be the last time we see these weapons in use, and not just in a distant battlefield. Chemical weapons are not only an appearance in other wars, and they are ideal for terrorist groups seeking to inflict maximum fear." Contention 2. Striking Assad will protect our international interests by deterring Assad's ability to use or distribute chemical weapons to other terrorists. Subpoint A. The military resolution has been tightly tailored to be limited, according to Robert Menendez, who was previously qualified, and this was at the Senate of Foreign Relations hearing on Syrian intervention on September 3rd. The resolution will have clear consequences, but it also is not open-ended. It appropriately narrows the scope, duration, and breadth of the authority granted to meet the congressional concerns and the concerns of the American people. It is tightly tailored to give the President necessary and appropriate authority to use military force to respond to the use of weapons of mass destruction by the Syrian government. It is to protect the national security interests of the United States and our allies and partners, and degrade Syria's capacity to use such weapons in the future. Subpoint B. The military strike is a long-term resolution that will degrade Assad's ability to use chemical weapons, according to Robert Menendez, previously qualified, at the Center for Relations hearing on Syrian intervention. And let me say to my colleagues who believe that the authorization of military force will be nothing more than a pinprick, this resolution will have a clear and verifiable consequence. It will keep these weapons in check, degrade Assad's ability to deploy them, and prevent the proliferation of chemical weapons and their use by anyone in the world. Subpoint C. The strike will keep hands out of keep the weapons out of the hands of extremists. According to Brett Plummer, reporter for the Washington Post on September 5th, 2013, where he writes, preventing chemical weapons from falling into the hands of extremist elements is the ultimate goal of such policies, the reporter notes. There will continue to be limited intelligence on about where and how well and by whom they are being secured. And I now stand open for cross-examination.
In contention two, you said that a strike will protect national interests. Where in your evidence does it say to protect national interests?
It says we'll protect our international interests by keeping weapons out of the hands of extremists, who in contention one, we showed show like a great possibility of striking our allies.
And that's it.